Brought to you by PrayLatin.com, makers of prayer cards featuring complete English phonetic renderings of Latin pronunciations.
I mean, part of the difficulty we have is that we have very few vocations to the priesthood. But part of the other difficulty we have is that the vocations we're getting are like my parish priest in the 40s and the 50s at home. They're traditional. They want to wear black. They want to wear soutanas. They want to talk to people about sin. They want the Latin Mass, and they want to dress up in vestments, and they want to do all of this sort of thing, like people did 40, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. So I despair of the young priests.
Clearly, many here are concerned with the future of the priesthood, right? We see that in the clip of the Irish priest talking about how it's awful that in these conservative seminarians, we'd rather have no priests at all than ones who want to wear cassocks and want the traditional mass and want the sacraments and how dare they, want to talk about sin. That's not synodal. They are very clearly concerned with it. And their proposal is the recently announced ecclesial assembly for the synod in 2028 and the processes between now and then. What we have seen here is they may get their way, meaning they'd rather have nothing. There may be so very few priests that most people aren't able to go to Mass if they keep getting their way. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but I'm going to show you this. We go to Gloria TV. Headline: Recent Catholic statistics. Seminarians decreased every year since 2012. It is my contention that we have had better seminarians, more conservative ones, throughout the entire Francis papacy. But the real Francis effect has been not vocations, but an actual total collapse in vocations. There are far fewer men in the seminaries than ever before. The ones who are in the seminaries now tend to be much more conservative than any point in the post-Vatican II period. And that's a good thing, obviously. Many of them want to say the traditional Mass. Many of them want to actually remind people about the four last things, and that one day you will stand before Jesus Christ to give an account of literally everything. Little things like that they want to do. Things that freak out that Irish priest. But the overall trend is a decline in numbers. That's concerning, to say the least. Here are the details. Quote, the Catholic population of the world continues to grow by more than 1% per year and has exceeded 1.4 billion. This is according to the latest data now published in the Pontifical Yearbook of 2025. The figures are for the year 2023. It shows rapid growth of the Catholic population in Africa, with slower growth in the Americas and Asia, and almost no growth in Europe. Africa, with a Catholic population growth rate of 3.3% in 2023, now accounts for 20% of the world's Catholics, almost as many as Europe, which is 20.4% Catholic. But with Europe's Catholic population growing only by 0.2%, Africa is likely to soon overtake Europe. North and South America have the largest Catholic population, accounting for nearly half of the world total. The growth rate there was 0.9%. In Asia, the Catholic population grew by 0.6%, and in Oceania by 1.9%. There were 406,996 Catholic priests in the world at the end of 2023, a decrease of 0.2% from the previous year. This trend is likely to continue as the number of seminarians also decreased by 1.8%. There are 106,495 seminarians in the world at the moment. There was an increase of 2.7% of the number of priests in Africa and a decrease of 1.6% in Europe. The total number of seminarians worldwide decreased from 108,481 in 2022 to 106,495 in 2023. The number of seminarians has also decreased every year since 2012. The number of women religious also decreased by 1.6%, continuing a long-term trend. End quote. The only place in the church that vocations have risen is in the diaconate, as I understand it. Those aren't good numbers. And the one thing that those numbers never address, how many of the people among those are actually practicing Catholics in terms of they believe everything that 100 years ago a Catholic would believe? How many of them are the kind who go to Mass on a regular basis, but according to the Pew Research, reject the Church's authority on moral matters, or believe the Eucharist is merely a symbol. How many? That is a key number to think about, because if you reject the Eucharist as the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ being actually those things, then you are not a Catholic. You are something else. But you're not a Catholic because that is core to the faith. It's a heresy to object to those things. Every Christian believed it from the time of the beginning of the church until the 16th century. It's one of the things that distinguishes the apostolic churches, Catholic, Orthodox, and a few of the others, from the other things. And only 1 in 3 Catholics believes that in the United States. So put all those numbers with an asterisk. The church is not growing at the moment, not really. And we see that play out in those numbers. Their solution to those numbers that I told you about, the slow decline of those, is actually pretty obvious. Now, you might be thinking that the obvious solution means reinforcing tradition, making the traditional Latin Mass available to whomever wants it, since TLM parishes, those traditional Latin Mass parishes with the pre-Vatican II form of the liturgy, typically have orders of magnitude more vocations than a typical parish. And that sort of thing. You might be thinking, teach Catholic morality from the ambo, give hard homilies. You don't have to be, harsh in the confessional, but, give some, don't just do a form, just a go run through a form kind of absolution either in the confessional, give some advice, but don't turn it into a counseling session, but, treat confession a little bit more seriously and actually offer the sacrament of penance or reconciliation more often than it is those sorts of things. And also, you might think, Eucharistic adoration, because all those things have been shown to increase belief in the real presence and increase the piety of a parish. You might think those are the solutions. Well, you would be wrong, because those are not the synodal solutions to the problem. The real solution is to, of course, do what something like half of Catholics in the United States actually want to have happen, and that would be to ordain the ladies, to ordain women. That's the synodal solution for the new synodal church. And we go here to another piece from Glory TV. Headline: Swiss bishop wants to ordain women. This is his solution to the lack of vocations in the conciliar church. It's not to go back to what worked, to teach morality. No. Remember that Irish bishop or that Irish priest. He would rather have no priests at all than go back to the way it was before. What they want is just replace them with the ladies. Think about the implications of that, and think about the fact that you will find this nowhere in church, in Christian history, anywhere. That this is not a Christian solution to things, not in the slightest. Here are the details. Quote: "We have an emergency. I have produced an emergency, an ordination emergency. For me, that means we can only ordain single men because of celibacy. And we also cannot ordain women and admit them to ordained ministries." Bishop Marcus Buchel, 75, of St. Gallen, Switzerland, told cath.ch. Well, I'm glad it's this guy, because he's like the Bishop of St. Gallen, Switzerland, right? If you don't think he's part of the St. Gallen group, he's the one hosting their meetings. His concern: where we have the opportunity through extraordinary episcopal mandates to open up ways to do so. And then, of course, pictured here is the first Episcopal vicaress in the German-speaking countries in office in Klagenfurt, Austria, since March 1st. Boy, does that not look like she's offering the Mass or what? That is your Episcopal vicaress in Germany. She looks like she's offering a Mass, because I can't imagine what else she's doing there. But that is their solution, is to toss out everything the church has said about the priesthood, who can be priests, and instead to just make it available to whoever wants to be. And really the only group agitating for access to holy orders, aside from traditionalists, are women. And that's not the Catholic Church's solution. But then again, we're not talking about the Catholic Church anymore. We're not talking about the new synodal church, because those who ran the synod, who organized it, who keep pushing it, keep extending it now so it'll last the length of an American presidency, culminating into something that everybody will call Vatican III, basically. Call it that. They call it the new synodal church. And you should ask yourself, why do we need a new church? Why can't we have the Catholic Church? And you should also ask yourself, if the next pope, because by October 2028, we'll probably have a new pope. If we have a new pope by then, do you think they will stop this? And I'm not as convinced as many of you are that they will. Because we're likely, most people kind of think, we're going to get a moderate pope. And I don't like using political language to describe this, but compared to Francis, a moderate pope would be seemingly refreshing. But a moderate pope's not going to do things like silence James Martin, fire Cardinal Fernandez, stop the synod, because they're not, a moderate pope is by definition not there to rock the boat. So I'm not that convinced that this will be averted. My suspicion is the synod on the synodal church, the new synodal religion is coming whether you like it or not. All right, folks, let me know what you think about this in the comments, please. And of course, hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. Sharing this on social media helps too. And pray for everybody we spoke about today, including those bishops and anybody else. We're not here to whip you up against them. Just make sure to pray for them. It's one of the greatest acts of charity you can do, is to pray for somebody who desperately needs it, and they clearly do. If they don't think the Catholic Church is given to us by Jesus Christ is good enough. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.